Now, like I said, Wendy thought that this was a hit and run, and that's what she told the 911 operator. And that's also what the first responders were expecting when they arrived at the scene. But pretty much as soon as they got to Rebecca's body, they knew that this was not a hit and run. It was something much, much worse. The first thing that tipped them off was how Rebecca's clothing looked. Her top was scrunched up, her pants were folded down so much so that part of her rear end was actually showing. And I have never personally heard of a hit and run victim's pants being folded down in the process of being hit. Sure, sometimes clothing rips and moves, but this felt more intentional, more like it had been pulled down and folded down. And that was just one of the things. The major thing that the first responders noticed as they got closer to her body was when they were trying to figure out where all of this blood was coming from, they realized that the head injury was not from the blunt force trauma of being hit by a car, but it was actually from gunshot wounds. Now, these exact details weren't discovered until a later autopsy, but Rebecca had suffered 4 different gunshot wounds to her head from 3 different bullets. Now, aside from the gunshot wounds, there were also injuries on her body which told the investigators that she had likely put up a fight. She had a lot of defensive wounds. There were bruises on the left side of her rib cage. There were bruises on her wrists. I mean, she fought like hell. The creepiest clue that was left at the scene were her belongings. Given that she had been out on a run, she had the typical things with her that you would take when you go for a jog. She had her headphones, her sunglasses, she had an armband that held her phone. And these items weren't just, strung out near her body the way that they would be if she had gotten hit and somebody drove off, but they were neatly lined up on the side of the road, almost as if whoever had done this to her wanted to leave their mark, almost taunting the investigators that they had been there. So Rebecca's case had very quickly gone from this tragic hit and run to a very sinister homicide. Now here's where it all ties together. Rebecca and Jessica both lived in Michigan. Rebecca lived in a rural county, but guess what else was part of that county? Norton Shores, where Jessica went missing a year prior. Now, I don't know the exact crime rates and the statistics of this exact county, but even the investigators started to wonder, is there any world in which these 2 women were victims of the same person? I mean, the area was similar. The fact that Rebecca was shot and that there was blood and gun accessories found at the Exxon station when Jessica had been abducted or whatever happened to her, I mean, that was a similarity. These women themselves weren't really all that alike, though. I mean, if you're assuming maybe that the perpetrator had a specific type of victim, they were different in ages, different hair color, different physical attributes, that sort of thing. One had gone missing from work late at night. The other was shot while out on a jog, so not entirely similar. But it definitely was something that the investigators were going to look into. There wasn't enough at this point to do a full-on press conference saying that somebody was out there kidnapping or murdering women in the county in Michigan, but they certainly were going to start looking into everything. So the investigators started by looking more into Rebecca's case. And they hoped that maybe, somewhere along the way, something could potentially connect the 2 cases.